It was supposed to be the perfect celebration, their 25th wedding anniversary. Friends, family, and colleagues gathered in a lavish hall, champagne flowing, laughter echoing. But behind the glittering smiles and clinking glasses, a storm was brewing. Jonathan had planned a cruel surprise. He intended to publicly humiliate his wife, Olivia, with his secret mistress, right in front of everyone they knew. Yet, Olivia was no ordinary woman. Calm, calculating, and fiercely intelligent. She had uncovered Jonathan's betrayal weeks before the party, and what she had prepared would not only shock everyone present but completely turn the tables, revealing a secret fortune worth $3 million that Jonathan never saw coming. By the end of the night, the man who thought he had all the power would be left broken, humiliated, and exposed, while Olivia emerged victorious, her dignity untouchable, and her revenge legendary. The perfect celebration? Olivia stepped into the grand ballroom, her heels clicking against the marble floor. The air shimmered with golden lights reflecting off crystal chandeliers, and soft classical music floated through the room. Her heart should have been light, brimming with joy, but instead, annoying unease tugged at her chest. 25 years of marriage, a milestone meant to celebrate love and endurance. Yet she felt a weight that no number of roses or champagne flutes could lift. Jonathan, her husband of a quarter century, was supposed to be waiting for her. The man she had once adored, the man who had promised forever, now carried secrets. She had discovered it weeks ago, a betrayal so cold, so calculated, that it could have shattered her completely. But Olivia was never the type to crumble. Tonight, she would not merely endure, she would conquer. Guests mingled, unaware of the silent war brewing beneath the polished smiles and polite laughter. Colleagues, family, old friends, all of them had come to honor a couple they thought perfect. Nobody suspected the tempest that was about to hit. Jonathan appeared then, smiling, his tailored suit impeccable, charm radiating effortlessly. He extended a hand, but Olivia didn't take it immediately. Instead, she looked him in the eyes, sharp and calculating. "Beautiful evening, isn't it?" he said, his voice carrying that practiced warmth. "It is," Olivia replied softly, almost calmly. "The perfect evening." For some, her words were like a slow drip, subtle but ominous. Jonathan frowned, the first flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. But he masked it quickly, thinking perhaps she was just being dramatic. After all, Olivia had always been composed. The party began in earnest. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, serving champagne and hors d'oeuvres, while a string quartet played a medley of romantic classics. Guests raised glasses, laughed at old jokes, and snapped pictures. Jonathan, however, had something else in mind. He leaned toward his mistress, a woman named Vanessa, whose presence was meant to be a dagger hidden in plain sight. He whispered his plan, detailing how he would reveal the affair in front of everyone, a humiliating spectacle designed to display his dominance, to embarrass Olivia and claim a twisted sense of control. Meanwhile, Olivia had been planning her own revelation. Months earlier, she had quietly transferred a substantial inheritance into an offshore account. Not a fortune to flaunt casually, but enough to turn the tables in a way Jonathan could never anticipate. She had orchestrated a chain of events that would not only expose his infidelity but also completely undermine the life he thought he controlled. As the band struck up a lively tune and Jonathan prepared to make his move, Olivia stepped onto the small stage set up for speeches. The room's chatter quieted instantly. Cameras clicked. Eyes turned to her, expecting a conventional toast. "I want to say something," Olivia began, her voice calm, measured, yet carrying a subtle authority that immediately commanded attention. 25 years ago, I married a man I trusted completely, a man I believed would honor the vows we made. Tonight, I thought I would celebrate that commitment. Her words paused just long, enough to make a ripple of anticipation move through the crowd. Jonathan's confident smile faltered slightly, sensing the shift in energy. But she continued, her gaze sweeping across the hall, stopping at Jonathan and Vanessa. Sometimes the person you trust most has hidden motives, secrets that could destroy everything. And sometimes the person you think is powerless is the one who holds all the cards. A murmur ran through the guests. Olivia's words were not just dramatic, they hinted at a revelation, something that would leave everyone questioning everything they thought they knew. Jonathan leaned forward, a flicker of panic in his eyes. This wasn't part of the plan. How could she know? And why now? Olivia smiled faintly, a curve that didn't reach her eyes but held deadly precision. You see, she said, betrayal is a dangerous game. But so is underestimating the person you've wronged. Tonight, I think we all need to see the truth. The first whispers began to spread like wildfire. Phones were raised, cameras aimed. The party that was meant to humiliate Olivia was about to become the very stage where Jonathan's secrets and his shame would be revealed in front of every single person in that room. And somewhere in the shadows, Olivia's plan was already in motion. The plan unfolds. The clinking of glasses echoed through the grand hall, but behind Jonathan's composed smile, a storm of anticipation brewed. Vanessa, draped in a sleek red dress that drew eyes across the room, leaned close. Tonight, Jonathan whispered, everyone will see. She finally get what she deserves, humiliation in front of her friends, her colleagues, even her family. Vanessa smiled, excitement dancing in her eyes. And you're sure
she won't see it coming? Jonathan's gaze hardened. Trust me, I've planned this meticulously. Every detail, every moment. By the time I'm done, she'll be nothing but a memory of the woman she once was. Unbeknownst to him, Olivia was already several steps ahead. Weeks earlier, she had intercepted emails, noticed unusual phone calls, and traced financial transactions. She knew the moment Jonathan would make his move, and she had set up a series of contingencies to ensure his downfall. The first act of the night was a toast. Jonathan, clutching a glass of champagne, cleared his throat and raised it high to 25 years of partnership, love, and growth. His smile was broad, polished, but the eyes that scanned the room betrayed a secret intent. Olivia stepped back slightly, letting the crowd absorb his words. Then, in a smooth, almost imperceptible motion, she pressed a button concealed in her clutch. Across the hall, a discreet projection screen flickered to life, casting a soft glow. Jonathan's confident grin faltered as the first slide appeared. Photos from his secret meetings with Vanessa. The images were undeniable texts. Dinner dates, stolen moments that screamed betrayal. Gasps rippled through the room. Olivia, Jonathan said sharply, his voice cracking for the first time. What? How did? She raised a hand, silencing him with a look. I told you. Betrayal is a dangerous game, she said calmly. I simply chose to document everything. Vanessa's face went pale. The woman who thought she was part of a secret, thrilling plot now realized she was a pawn on Olivia's chessboard. Guests whispered, their phones capturing every moment. Social media notifications were already lighting up by the time the night ended. This scandal would be trending globally. Jonathan tried to regain control. This is private. You have no right. Olivia smiled faintly. Private? I think you misunderstood. Betrayal is a public matter, Jonathan, especially when it comes to a $3 million inheritance you thought you could manipulate. The mention of money caused a ripple of shock through the room. Even Jonathan's closest friends paused mid-toast, realizing the stakes were far higher than a simple affair. Olivia continued, pacing slightly, her eyes locking on Jonathan's. You see, while you were plotting humiliation, I was ensuring security. This inheritance is mine, fully protected, untouchable, and tonight, everyone will know exactly who tried to deceive whom. Jonathan's pulse quickened. Panic was no longer a whisper, it was a roar. He turned to Vanessa, hoping for support, but she could only stare, frozen in disbelief. As the night unfolded, Olivia revealed more layers. Financial documents, displayed discreetly via projection, witnesses who had seen Jonathan's manipulations, and subtle yet undeniable proof of years of deceit. Each revelation struck like a hammer, leaving Jonathan staggered and defenseless. And through it all, Olivia remained composed, regal, and utterly untouchable. Every word, every gesture, calculated to ensure maximum impact. She wasn't just retaliating, she was performing a masterclass in controlled, strategic revenge. The $3 million reveal. The room had fallen into stunned silence. Cameras flashed as Olivia's projection screen displayed the irrefutable proof of Jonathan's infidelity. But the crowd was about to witness a revelation far more shocking than an affair. Olivia took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping across the room, finally resting on Jonathan. "You see," she began, her voice calm yet commanding. "There's more to tonight than betrayal and lies. There's also the truth about control and who truly holds it." Jonathan's frown deepened. He could feel the walls closing in. Vanessa's grip on his arm tightened, but it was of no comfort. Olivia's presence was magnetic, irresistible, unshakable. With a flourish, Olivia pressed another button on her clutch. The screen shifted, revealing a series of financial documents, account statements, and legal papers. Each one clearly demonstrated that Olivia had inherited and secured a fortune of $3 million. Gasps erupted from the guests. Whispers spread like wildfire. A few attendees stumbled backward, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Jonathan's smugness was gone, replaced by disbelief and terror. How did you?" he stammered, eyes wide. Olivia's lips curved into a faint, controlled smile. "You thought you could ruin me, humiliate me, and claim power over our life together. But you forgot one crucial detail. You underestimated me." She paused, letting her words sink in. The inheritance was more than money. It was leverage, security, and proof that Jonathan's power was an illusion. Vanessa's face had turned pale, a stark contrast to the red of her dress. She realized she had been a pawn in both Jonathan's and Olivia's games, except Olivia had played hers with far greater skill, precision, and foresight. Olivia continued, her voice now ringing through the room with unyielding authority. "Jonathan, all these years you manipulated situations, convinced people of your charm and integrity, while secretly plotting betrayal. Tonight, in front of everyone who ever respected you, your true nature is revealed." Jonathan's shoulders slumped. Panic turned to rage. This is not fair." Olivia shook her head slowly. "Fairness isn't the point. Consequences are. And tonight, the consequence of your actions is exposure, complete and undeniable. Not just your affair, not just your lies, but your arrogance, your greed, and your belief that I was powerless." Guests murmured, many reaching for their phones, recording every moment. The event that Jonathan had intended as a spectacle to humiliate his wife had instead become a live demonstration of his own downfall. Olivia's final move for the night was a masterstroke. She had arranged for a legal representative to be present, ready to confirm that her inheritance was fully protected, untouchable by any claims Jonathan might attempt. This was not just revenge, it was an airtight, indisputable triumph. As the crowd absorbed the gravity of the revelation, Olivia stepped down from the stage. Her posture was impeccable, every movement radiating confidence. Jonathan, on the other hand, could barely meet anyone's gaze. The humiliation he had planned to deliver was now his own reality. Vanessa finally broke the silence, whispering harshly, "Jonathan, what have you done?" Jonathan's lips quivered, but no words came. The man who had orchestrated betrayal and humiliation was left speechless, his facade completely shattered. Olivia's eyes met his one final time, icy and unyielding. "Remember this moment," she said softly, yet every guest could hear her words. "This is what happens when you underestimate the one you think is powerless. And tonight, Jonathan, you are powerless." As the party continued around them, the energy in the room had shifted irreversibly. Jonathan's plan had spectacularly backfired. Olivia had emerged victorious, and the $3 million inheritance was no longer just money. It was proof of her foresight, strength, and unassailable control over her own destiny. Jonathan could barely think. His plan to humiliate Olivia had spectacularly imploded. The crowd's whispers and the flashing cameras only intensified his humiliation. He needed a way out, some desperate move to regain control, anything to salvage his reputation. He leaned toward Vanessa, whispering urgently, "We need to stop this. She's destroying everything I built." Vanessa shook her head, panic clear in her eyes. I I don't think you can, Jonathan. She's prepared for everything. Jonathan ignored her. His pride, his ego, demanded action. He strode to the stage, attempting to reclaim the narrative. Everyone listen. This is ridiculous. Olivia is. Before he could finish, Olivia's calm, commanding voice cut through the room. Jonathan, please. She gestured gracefully, yet with unmistakable authority. Allow me to finish. You see, your interruption is predictable. A murmur rippled through the guests. Jonathan froze. How could she anticipate this? Olivia pressed a discreet button on her clutch again. The projection screen lit up once more, this time showing private emails and text messages Jonathan had sent to Vanessa, filled with manipulative instructions, lies, and threats. The room gasped. Faces turned toward Jonathan, disbelief and shock mirrored in every eye. He tried to speak again, but the words caught in his throat. Olivia stepped closer, her heels clicking with deliberate precision. You thought your clever manipulation would remain hidden. You thought your mistress would protect you. But I ensured every move you made was documented. Every betrayal, every plot, every lie. It's all here. Jonathan's palms were sweating. He realized he was trapped, every possible escape blocked. His humiliation wasn't just public, it was meticulously curated by Olivia, who had anticipated every desperate move he might attempt. Some guests began whispering about the scale of his deceit, shaking their heads. Social media notifications were already buzzing with live updates. This was no longer a private scandal, it was a spectacle that would define Jonathan's social and professional life. Desperate, Jonathan tried to appeal to the crowd. Please, you don't understand, she's twisting this. Olivia's voice was steady, ice cold. No, Jonathan, I am revealing the truth. And truth doesn't need twisting. You did this to yourself. She paused dramatically, letting her words settle. Then she revealed her final trap for the night, a series of legally binding documents showing that any assets Jonathan might attempt to claim were already secured under her control. Every loophole he might have exploited was closed. Every potential ally he might have leaned on had been discreetly informed and neutralized. Jonathan staggered back, the reality sinking in. His empire of deceit had crumbled in front of everyone he knew. His mistress was stunned, frozen in shock, and Olivia was the picture of composure and victory. By the end of part 4, Jonathan was fully exposed. His desperate counterattacks had failed spectacularly. Olivia's strategic planning, foresight, and meticulous preparation had ensured that not only was she protected financially, but her dignity and dominance were undeniable. The party, meant to be Jonathan's moment of triumph, had become the stage for his absolute downfall. And Olivia, calm, regal, and unshakable, had orchestrated every second of it. Family reactions and social fallout. The room was buzzing, but not with celebration. Shock, disbelief, and whispers of scandal replaced the cheerful chatter that had filled the hall just moments ago. Guests exchanged glances, some shaking their heads, others frowning in judgment. Jonathan sank into a chair, defeated, his face pale. Vanessa hovered nearby, still processing the devastation. He had thought he controlled the narrative, but every move had been anticipated, every action countered. Olivia stood tall, her poise unbroken, but now, she turned her attention to another audience, their family. Her mother-in-law, Evelyn, had been watching with thinly veiled suspicion. Evelyn had always harbored resentment toward Olivia, quietly supporting Jonathan in subtle power plays. And now her schemes were also being exposed. Olivia, Evelyn said, her voice trembling slightly with anger and disbelief. How could you show all this in front of everyone? Olivia's gaze was unwavering. Mother-in-law, I could ask the same of you. Your subtle manipulations, your whispered suggestions, the encouragement of his betrayal, it's all visible now. Tonight, the truth matters more than your schemes. The room grew tense. Jonathan's siblings looked embarrassed, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Friends who had always admired Jonathan now questioned everything they thought they knew. Jonathan, Olivia continued, her voice measured but cutting. You planned humiliation, thinking no one would see your deceit. But the truth always finds its way. And the truth tonight is simple. I am strong. I am protected. And your lies have been laid bare. Evelyn gasped, realizing the full extent of Olivia's strategic mastery. Jonathan tried to speak, but his voice faltered, this. You can't It's not fair. Olivia smiled faintly. Fairness isn't the point, Jonathan. Consequences are. Word spread rapidly. Guests discreetly pulled out their phones, sending live updates to social media. Within minutes, the scandal was trending online. Messages, photos, and videos captured every detail. By the time the party ended, the fallout would extend far beyond the walls of the ballroom. Meanwhile, Olivia took another step. She directed the conversation toward reconciliation with dignity, emphasizing truth, accountability, and respect. Tonight is not just about exposing betrayal. It's about acknowledging reality and moving forward with honesty. Those who value integrity will see that, and those who do not will be revealed for what they truly are. Jonathan's closest friends tried to defend him, murmuring apologies or explanations, but the evidence was overwhelming. Olivia had orchestrated everything so meticulously that any attempt to refute the revelations only made Jonathan appear more culpable. The social fallout was immediate. News of the scandal spread like wildfire across social networks. Reactions ranged from shock to outrage, from sympathy for Olivia to ridicule for Jonathan and Vanessa. Memes, hashtags, and discussion threads appeared within minutes. Olivia's calculated presentation of evidence, the inheritance revelation, and Jonathan's failed counterattacks made the story irresistibly shareable. As the party wound down, Jonathan was left isolated, his arrogance shattered. Family members whispered among themselves. Friends avoided eye contact, and Vanessa slipped away quietly, her plan in ruins. Olivia, meanwhile, received congratulations from those who admired her courage, intelligence, and restraint. The woman who had been underestimated for so many years now commanded respect. Her reputation strengthened rather than diminished. By the end of Part 5, the power dynamics were clear. Jonathan was defeated, his family's support fractured, and Olivia emerged not only victorious, but untouchable. Socially, financially, and emotionally, she had won the war Jonathan thought he was waging. The last-ditch attempt. Jonathan sat in stunned silence, the weight of exposure pressing down on him. The party, once meant to showcase his cunning and dominance, had become the theater of his complete downfall. Vanessa hovered nervously, unsure whether to flee or try to salvage some dignity. But Jonathan, driven by desperation and ego, was not yet ready to surrender. He rose abruptly, clearing his throat to capture the attention of the remaining guests. "Everyone wait," he shouted, his voice cracking. This is not how it happened. She's twisting the story, exaggerating things. A few guests turned, some curious, others incredulous. Olivia, standing on the stage, didn't flinch. Her gaze locked onto him, steady and unwavering. Jonathan clenched his fists. I just want to explain. Olivia's calm, piercing voice carried across the room. "Explain, Jonathan. Go ahead. Tell everyone about the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal. Tell them how you plotted humiliation. Go on." The tension in the room thickened. Guests held their breath, phones poised, sensing the climax of an already explosive drama. Jonathan fumbled, his rehearsed words failing him. Every attempt to regain control faltered under Olivia's meticulous preparation. She had anticipated this moment, every desperate argument, every defensive excuse, and had countered it with indisputable evidence. Olivia pressed a small remote. The screen lit up again, displaying a sequence of recorded conversations, financial transfers, and even witness statements confirming Jonathan's attempts to manipulate both her and the guests. The crowd gasped, whispers turning into murmurs of disbelief and judgment. Jonathan's face flushed crimson. He had imagined control, but now he was cornered. Every move documented, every lie exposed. Vanessa reached out, her voice trembling. "Jonathan, maybe we should just..." "No," he snapped, but the roar of evidence drowned out his authority. The audience watched as the man who once commanded respect now stumbled. Humiliated, powerless, Olivia descended the stage gracefully, her steps deliberate, every movement commanding attention. "Jonathan," she said softly but with lethal clarity, "you thought you could dictate the narrative. You thought your betrayal would remain hidden. You thought the truth was mine to lose. You were wrong on every count. the air was electric. Guests, family, and friends were captivated, witnessing not just a scandal, but a masterclass in strategic triumph. Olivia's presence radiated authority, every word, every gesture reinforcing her victory. Jonathan attempted one final rebuttal. Olivia's smile was cold, almost imperceptible. I doubt that, Jonathan. The only regret you should feel tonight is underestimating me. Every step, every action you took was anticipated. And now, the only thing left for you is to accept the consequences. At that moment, the social fallout intensified. Guests discreetly posted live updates, videos, and commentary across social media. By the time the party ended, the scandal would have already reached global audiences. Jonathan's reputation was irrevocably damaged. Vanessa, realizing the hopelessness of their situation, slipped out quietly, leaving Jonathan to face the fallout alone. His family, previously loyal, now regarded him with a mixture of disappointment, anger, and disbelief. Olivia, on the other hand, was met with admiration, respect, and awe. Her composure, intelligence, and strategic foresight had transformed what could have been a night of personal humiliation into a monumental triumph. By the end of part 6, it was unmistakable. Jonathan's last-ditch attempt to reclaim power had failed spectacularly. Olivia had orchestrated the ultimate revenge, not just exposing betrayal, but cementing her legacy as a woman unshakable, untouchable, and victorious in every sense. Aftermath and media frenzy. The night was over, but the storm had just begun. Guests trickled out, still murmuring in shock, phones in hand, recording and sharing every detail. Social media had exploded. Hashtags of the scandal were trending within minutes. News outlets caught wind of the story, framing it as a dramatic tale of betrayal, revenge, and an astonishing inheritance. Olivia walked through the now empty ballroom, her heels echoing softly against the polished floor. The grandeur of the setting, the chandeliers, the floral arrangements, the sparkling glasses felt surreal, almost like a stage set for a drama she had directed to perfection. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Messages of support poured in, friends, colleagues, even distant acquaintances who had admired her courage from afar. The narrative was clear. Olivia had not only survived a public attempt at humiliation, but she had also emerged stronger, wiser, and victorious. Meanwhile, Jonathan was cornered. His once commanding presence was reduced to anxious phone calls and private attempts to mitigate the damage. The humiliation he had intended for Olivia had been turned back on him, amplified, and made irreversible. Every social media post, every news article, every whispered conversation cemented his downfall. Olivia, in contrast, carefully controlled her narrative. She posted a single, elegant statement online. Truth and integrity matter more than revenge. Tonight, I chose to honor both. It was enough. Supporters rallied behind her. The media, intrigued by the inheritance twist and the public humiliation, splashed her story across headlines worldwide. Her poise, intelligence, and meticulous planning were praised. Even within Jonathan's own family, the shift was palpable. Evelyn, his mother, who had quietly supported schemes against Olivia for years, now faced scrutiny for her complicity. Jonathan's siblings whispered anxiously, uncertain of where their loyalties should lie. Olivia's dominance in the social sphere was undeniable. For Olivia, the ordeal had strengthened more than just her public image. She had reclaimed control over her life, her finances, and her dignity. The $3 million inheritance, which had once been a private security measure, now symbolized freedom, foresight, and empowerment. She had turned betrayal into opportunity, humiliation into triumph, and deceit into a lesson in resilience. The following days saw a ripple effect. Jonathan's professional contacts began distancing themselves. Mutual friends and acquaintances, who had once aligned with him now, expressed admiration for Olivia. Invitations, messages, and congratulations flooded her inbox. She had become a symbol not just of revenge, but of intelligent, composed, and strategic empowerment. Olivia's strategy was simple yet brilliant. Stay calm, reveal the truth, and never give the betrayer another chance to control the narrative. And it worked flawlessly. By the end of part 7, the world had witnessed the aftermath of a scandal turned into a masterclass in empowerment. Jonathan's fall was complete, and Olivia's rise, unstoppable. She had not only won her battle, but she had redefined what it meant to face betrayal and emerge victorious, strong, respected, and untouchable. Final attempts and securing the future. Days had passed since the disastrous anniversary party, but the reverberations were far from over. Jonathan, desperate to reclaim any shred of control, made frantic calls attempting to reach lawyers, friends, and media contacts. Every effort, however, was met with resistance, suspicion, or outright refusal. The public had already judged. Social media, news outlets, and mutual acquaintances amplified Olivia's triumph and Jonathan's failure. The narrative was fixed. He had been outsmarted, exposed, and humiliated, his arrogance laid bare for the world to see. Jonathan's phone rang incessantly, but the calls were empty promises and polite rejections. Olivia, meanwhile, calmly reviewed her affairs. The $3 million inheritance, previously a quiet security measure, had now become her ultimate shield. Legal documents, transfers, and protections ensured that no claim, no plot, and no desperate action could touch her wealth or her autonomy. Her lawyer, discreetly present during the fallout, confirmed everything. Every asset, every account, every contingency. Airtight. "You are untouchable," he said. Olivia smiled, a mixture of relief and triumph crossing her face. Jonathan, realizing his final attempts at damage control were failing, became increasingly erratic. He reached out to mutual friends, seeking sympathy and support. Few responded, and even fewer believed his version of events. The web of deceit he had spun now entangled only him. Olivia's strategy was clear and decisive. She controlled every narrative, reinforced her dominance publicly, and ensured her financial and social security privately. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with Jonathan's panic, highlighting not just her victory, but the depth of her intelligence and foresight. Even within Jonathan's own circle, attempts to manipulate or support him failed. Olivia had anticipated every potential ally he might recruit and had subtly ensured they understood the truth. Every effort Jonathan made only further emphasized his defeat. In the boardrooms, social circles, and public spheres where Jonathan had once wielded influence, whispers of caution and judgment followed him. His reputation was irreparably damaged. Olivia, by contrast, was invited to speak at events, share her insights, and inspire those who had witnessed her resilience. The final public confrontation came when Jonathan attempted a last-ditch media statement, aiming to shift the narrative. But Olivia, aware of the plan, had already briefed the press. Every question was anticipated, every answer rehearsed. The media, loyal to factual reporting, presented only verified truths. Jonathan's manipulation, betrayal, and failed attempts at control. By the end of part 8, the victory was complete. Jonathan's reputation was shattered. Olivia's inheritance and assets were fully secured. Her social and public influence had grown exponentially. Olivia had not only survived the storm, she had masterfully turned betrayal into empowerment, humiliation into respect, and crisis into opportunity. The climax of her journey was now a reality. The world had witnessed the downfall of deceit and the rise of calculated strength. Personal collapse and public triumph. Weeks had passed since the anniversary disaster, yet the echoes of that night still resonated everywhere Jonathan went. Friends, colleagues, and even casual acquaintances treated him differently. Some avoided him entirely. Others whispered behind his back. His confidence, once unshakable, had crumbled into a fragile, quivering shell. Jonathan's personal life began to unravel. Vanessa, humiliated and fearful of association, had vanished from his social circle. His family, once loyal and protective, now scrutinized him with thinly veiled disdain. Even the smallest social gatherings became exercises in discomfort, with every glance and whisper reminding him of the monumental failure he could not escape. Meanwhile, Olivia's life had transformed. Public admiration continued to swell as the story of her composure, intelligence, and strategic brilliance circulated widely. Invitations to interviews, speaking engagements, and high-profile events poured in. The woman who had been underestimated for decades, was now celebrated. As a symbol of resilience and empowerment, social media buzzed daily with hashtags praising her foresight and courage. Olivia wins trended across platforms. Articles titled How She Turned Betrayal into Triumph and The $3 million Revelation that stunned everyone dominated feeds. Olivia's calm yet authoritative persona captivated audiences. She became a case study in strategic planning, patience, and unwavering confidence. Even Jonathan's few allies began to distance themselves. Attempts to defend him publicly were met with skepticism, as the evidence Olivia presented was airtight, unassailable, and meticulously documented. Every lie, every scheme, every act of betrayal was now part of a permanent public record. At home, Olivia allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. She thought back to the years of subtle manipulation, the betrayals, and the moments of doubt. And yet, she realized that all of it had led to this point, a moment where her intelligence, patience, and strength had culminated in absolute triumph. Her phone buzzed with messages of admiration, friends expressing relief and pride, strangers praising her courage. One particular message stood out: "You've shown everyone how to take control of their own life, no matter the betrayal." Inspirational. Meanwhile, Jonathan's personal collapse was near complete. Unable to face the public scrutiny, he retreated from social circles, avoiding any engagement that might remind him of the humiliation he suffered. Every attempt to rebuild his life was overshadowed by the enduring story of his downfall. Olivia, on the other hand, embraced her newfound position fully. She organized charitable initiatives, attended public events, and continued to secure her financial and social independence. Every step she took reinforced her power, demonstrating that she was not only untouchable but admired and respected on all fronts. By the end of part 9, the contrast could not have been starker. Jonathan, isolated, defeated, and humiliated. Olivia, empowered, celebrated, and untouchable. The world watching, inspired by one woman's ability to turn betrayal into a masterclass of victory. The stage was set for the final act, the resolution where all remaining tensions would settle, and Olivia's ultimate triumph would be sealed for posterity. Ultimate resolution and poetic justice. Months had passed since the infamous anniversary party, yet the story continued to reverberate across social circles, social media, and even business networks. Jonathan's humiliation had become legendary, a cautionary tale of arrogance, deceit, and underestimating the person you betray. Jonathan himself had withdrawn from public life almost entirely. Every attempt to repair his reputation fell flat. Friends distanced themselves. Family members were cautious, and Vanessa remained absent from his life. The man who once believed he controlled everything now existed in quiet disgrace, a shadow of his former self. Olivia, on the other hand, had fully reclaimed her life. The $3 million inheritance was now a symbol of her foresight, independence, and unshakable strength. She had invested wisely, expanded her influence, and taken on charitable initiatives that further enhanced her reputation. Her public appearances, interviews, and speeches inspired thousands, if not millions, around the world. The poetic justice of the situation was undeniable. The very man who intended to humiliate her had been undone by his own schemes. Every lie he told, every secret he kept, every act of betrayal had contributed directly to his downfall. Meanwhile, Olivia, calm, strategic, and intelligent, had transformed a moment of potential devastation into a triumph that would define her life forever. One quiet evening, Olivia reflected on the journey. She thought of the long nights planning her strategy, the subtle steps to secure her inheritance, and the careful orchestration of the anniversary party. Every calculated move, every restraint, every observation had culminated in this moment. She realized that true power was not in retaliation alone, but in planning, patience, and unyielding composure. News outlets continued to feature her story as a modern legend of empowerment. Documentaries, podcasts, and social media features highlighted her strategy, her courage, and her ability to turn betrayal into opportunity. Olivia had not only survived, she had thrived, commanding respect, admiration, and influence in ways Jonathan could never have imagined. Even within her personal life, Olivia found peace. Relationships built on trust and honesty flourished, and the shadow of betrayal no longer haunted her. Every challenge she faced became an opportunity, every setback a lesson. The $3 million inheritance, once a private security measure, had become a testament to her ability to safeguard her future and assert her independence. Meanwhile, Jonathan lived with the consequences of his arrogance. Invitations, social connections, and opportunities he once counted on had evaporated. His fall was complete, a living reminder that deceit and betrayal ultimately lead to ruin. Olivia, standing on the terrace of her newly renovated home, gazed at the sunset. The golden light reflected off the windows, a symbol of the life she had rebuilt, stronger than ever. She smiled, not in triumph over Jonathan, but in quiet satisfaction for having mastered her destiny. The world had witnessed her journey, a story of betrayal, resilience, strategy, and ultimate victory. Jonathan's humiliation was permanent, Olivia's triumph undeniable, and the lessons for anyone observing clear. Never underestimate intelligence, patience, and the quiet power of foresight. And so, the saga concluded, the betrayer undone, the betrayed victorious, and a woman's legacy cemented in history, her dignity untouchable, her power absolute, and her future secured beyond measure. The end. You loved Olivia's epic revenge story. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, comment below your thoughts or favorite twist.